Are you sure?
Yes.
What happens? Okay, what happens? Halloween.
Yeah,
Yes,
right?
and?
There will be no. I know way away.
All right, let's get started. Please make sure you've written down the goal for today. How are we doing today? Good? Enjoy your lunch?
Yes.
I thought today's lunch was excellent. The chicken today? Really, really nice. What do you think? Oh, you like this. What's that mean? Salty? All right, ready to go?
Yes.
So Daniel, close that for now. Now, yesterday we talked about the relationship between group membership, so being a member of a social group, and individual characteristics and traits. And what we saw is that what a person experiences could be due to membership in a social group, but their reaction to that experience or to that issue is unique to them. Okay, and I think I gave you the example. Okay, we're a group of KIS students, and we're walking down the street, and it starts raining. Okay, we experience that rain because we are a group of kids walking to the CU down the street. Okay, so being a part of this class makes you experience that rain. Okay, but the way you react to it is going to be different. Right? Not everyone will have the same reaction. Okay, the reaction is the result of who you are as a person. Okay, some of you will run to CU to get out of the rain. Some of you will run back to school. Some of you will put your hands in the air and dance around. Okay? So your reaction is unique. Okay? But the experience is due to being part of the group. Okay? That's what we're seeing in our story with Francisco. Alright? Today we're going to finish this story. I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite stories. We'll finish today. So what I want us to think about is, as we get to the end of a story, we want to start tracking and thinking back and asking ourselves, overall, is the story more positive or negative? Is it more positive or is it more negative? And before we start reading today, I want you to think back. Think back in the story. Is there anything positive that you remember about Francisco's story, his first day of school? What were the positives? I got two on the board. Maybe you can think of some more. Gia?
He made a friend named Joshua.
Named Arthur? Okay, he's made a friend. I wrote caterpillar because on that first day, whenever somebody stares at him, he looks at the caterpillar. So he's found a way to avoid feeling uncomfortable. Okay, he's embarrassed. He can't speak the language. The teacher doesn't let him speak Spanish. So all of you, in your book right now, you should make this T-chart, okay? So right now, we're like, imagine we're picking the story up again, after we've already started it. And before we continue, before we finish, we're kind of going through and asking ourselves, what are the positive sides of this story? What are the negative? Okay, so far, we've got the caterpillar. I could write on here, like, he likes the school. It's a lot different, a lot better than the tent his classroom was in before. Okay, so he likes the place. Okay, but he's got some issues with his teacher. He feels real embarrassed. The kids kind of giggle when they see him. So we have positive and negative sides to this experience, right? So as I read, as I continue the story, I want you to fill in positive and negative sides of the story. Okay? So Fred, what are you going to do while I read?
Find the positive and the negative.
Okay, and where are you going to write that?
No.
Where's your notebook? You got to write something down. Come on, Fred. I found your notebook for you yesterday. It's gone again?
I think it's in my bag.
So Fred, I think on the year, you've lost like shoes, jackets, 3 jackets, AirPods, 2 pencil cases. I think maybe we should, the new home for your notebook should be my desk. And every day, you leave it on my desk.
If there's something you should think is lost.
So what we can do, Fred, you're going to work with Siho. So when he starts writing something, you can talk together, okay? So you're writing the positive and negative sides of the story that you hear as I read, okay? Now, here we go. My favorite time in school was when we did art, which was every afternoon, after the teacher had read to us. Since I didn't understand Miss Scalapino when she explained the art lessons, she let me do whatever I wanted. I drew all kinds of animals, but mostly birds and butterflies. I sketched them in pencil and then colored them using every color in my crayon box. Miss Scalapino even tacked one of my drawings up on the board for everyone to see. After a couple weeks, it disappeared, and I didn't know how to ask where it had gone. Okay, so let's stop here. Write something down, and then turn and talk. Okay, look up here. Did you guys write something like I did? Did somebody write that a positive is this art class? So he's got some freedom in art class to draw what he wants and work on what he wants. And that works out well for him. He draws a butterfly, colors it in. Teacher likes it, it goes on the board. A negative side of this is that the reason why he has the freedom in art class is because he doesn't understand any of the directions. Right? So it's almost like Miss Scalapino said, you don't understand, so you go do whatever you want. Here's some crayons. Right? So that's not positive. Okay. So we're going to continue. You're going to do the same thing. Okay? Remember, think for details, think about objects, think about any dialogue. Is it positive, negative, or some of both? Okay? One cold Thursday morning, during recess, I was the only kid on the playground without a jacket. Mr. Sims, the principal, must have noticed I was shivering because that afternoon, after school, he took me to his office and pulled out a green jacket from a large cupboard, or a large cardboard box that was full of used clothes and toys. He handed it to me and gestured for me to try it on. It smelled like graham crackers. I put it on, but it was too big, so he rolled up the sleeves about 2 inches to make it fit. I took it home and showed it off to my parents. They smiled. I liked it. I liked it because it was green and hid my suspenders. The next day I was on the playground wearing my new jacket and waiting for the first bell to ring when I saw Curtis coming at me like an angry bull. Aiming his head directly at me and pulling his arms straight back with his hands clenched, he stomped up to me and started yelling. You guys remember who Curtis is? He's like the biggest and strongest kid in the grade. He's the one that they pick first, right? During games at recess. All right, so he's like the biggest kid. You guys, whatever you're doing with your feet, it needs to stop. Okay? And Eric, can you sit up a little bit? Thank you. So Curtis started yelling. I didn't understand him, but I knew it had something to do with the jacket because he began to pull on it, trying to take it off me. Next thing I knew, he and I were on the ground wrestling. Kids circled around us. I could hear them yelling Curtis's name and something else. I knew I had no chance, but I stubbornly held on to my jacket. He pulled on one of the sleeves so hard that it ripped off at the shoulder. He pulled on the right pocket, and that ripped too. Then Miss Scalapino's face appeared above. She pushed Curtis off and grabbed me by the back of the collar and picked me up off the ground. It took all the power I had not to cry. On the way to the classroom, Arthur told me that Curtis claimed the jacket was his, that he had lost it in the beginning of the year. He said that the teacher told Curtis and me that we were being punished. We had to sit on bench during recess for the rest of the week. I did not see the jacket again. Curtis got it, but I never saw him wear it. Okay, now this is an exciting, action-packed part of the story. Turn and tell your partner what you wrote down. Okay, now I hear a lot of us are saying the same things. So my question to you is, where does this go? Is it positive or negative?
Positive. Negative. In between. In between.
Right. So I'm going to put it here. And the reason is, because when I think of the jacket, part of it is positive, right? Mr. Sims, he saw that Francisco was cold, he didn't have a jacket, so after school he gave him one from Lost and Found. Okay, this shows, I'm sure, this helps Francisco feel, that he's a part of the school, that the principal is kind of looking out for him. I think it'll build a sense of security in Francisco and connect him to the school, but also it gets him beat up, right? Because the jacket used to be Curtis's. Curtis lost it in the beginning of the year, okay? And it made him a target for the biggest kid in the grade. So the jacket, we can say it's in the middle, all right? For the rest of the day, I could not even pretend I was paying attention to Miss Scalapino. I was so embarrassed. I laid my head on top of my desk and closed my eyes. I kept thinking about what happened that morning. I wanted to fall asleep and wake up and find it was only a dream. The teacher called my name, but I didn't answer. I heard her walk up to me. I didn't know what to expect. She gently took me by the shoulders again. I didn't respond. Miss Scalapino must have thought I was asleep because she left me alone. Even when it was time for recess and everyone left the room. Once the room was quiet, I slowly opened my eyes. I had them closed for so long, the sunlight coming through the window blinded me. I rubbed my eyes with the back of my hands and then looked to the left at the jar. I looked at the caterpillar, but could not see it. Thinking it might be hidden, I put my hand in the jar and lightly stirred the leaves. To my surprise, the caterpillar had spun itself into a cocoon and had attached itself to a small twig. It looked like a tiny cotton bulb, just like Roberto had said it would. I gently stroked it with my index finger, picturing it asleep and peaceful. At the end of the school day, Miss Scalapino gave me a note to take home to my parents. Papa and Mama did not know how to read, but they didn't have to. As soon as they saw my swollen upper lip, what's swollen mean?
Like, it's
How do we say it in Korean? Buwata? But that's cats, right?
Bunda.
Buta? Swollen, right? So he's got a fat, in English we call it a fat lip, right? Somebody hits you in the mouth and your lip is swollen, we call it a fat lip, right? So like fat lip, black eye, right? Like if you get hit in the eye, or if you get hit in the nose, sometimes we call that a black eye, right? Even though it's kind of bleeding. So, she gave me the note. They could see my swollen upper lip and the scratches on my left cheek. They knew what the note said. When I told them what happened, they were very upset, but relieved that I did not disrespect the teacher. For the next several days, going to school and facing Miss Scalapino was harder than ever. However, I slowly began to get over what happened. Once I got used to the routine in school and I picked up some English words, I felt more comfortable in class. On Wednesday, May 23rd, a few days before the end of the school year, Miss Scalapino took me by surprise. After we were all sitting down and she had taken roll, she called for everyone's attention. I didn't understand what she said, but I heard her say my name as she held up a blue ribbon. She then picked up my drawing of the butterfly that had disappeared weeks before and held it up for everyone to see. She walked up to me and handed me the drawing and the silk blue ribbon that had a number 1 printed on it in gold. I knew then I had received the first prize for my drawing. I was so proud I felt like bursting out of my skin. My classmates, including Curtis, stretched their necks to see the ribbon. Right? They stretched their necks, right? Oh yeah? Like that, right? Think of that, stretching their necks. Okay? That afternoon, during our free period, I went over to check on the caterpillar. I turned the jar around, trying to see the cocoon. It was beginning to crack open. I excitedly cried out, "Look, look," pointing to it. The whole class, like a swarm of bees, rushed over to the counter. Miss Scalapino took the jar and placed it on top of a desk in the middle of the classroom so everyone could see it. For the next several minutes, we all stood there watching the butterfly emerge from its cocoon in slow motion. At the end of the day, just before the last bell, Miss Scalapino picked up the jar and took the class outside to the playground. She placed the jar on the ground, and we all circled around her. I had a hard time seeing over the other kids, so Miss Scalapino called me and motioned me for me to open the jar. I broke through the circle, knelt on the ground, and unscrewed the top. Like magic, the butterfly flew into the air, fluttering its wings up and down. After school, I waited in line for my bus in front of the playground. I proudly carried my blue ribbon in my right hand and a drawing in the other. Arthur and Curtis came up to me and stood behind me to wait for their bus. Curtis mentioned for me to show him the drawing again. I held it up so he could see it. What do you think Curtis is going to do?
challenge it.
Huh? Damage it? Rip it? He really likes it, Francisco, Arthur said to me in Spanish. Francisco asks Arthur how to say something in English. Okay, so you got to picture this in your head, all right? I don't want the ending to get messed up. He's in line, right? It's Curtis and Arthur. Arthur speaks Spanish, right? So in Spanish, Arthur says to Francisco, he really likes it. Curtis really likes the drawing. And then Francisco says to Arthur, he asks Arthur how to say something in English. Because he wants to say something to Curtis. What do you think he says? What do you think he says? Any guesses?
No.
It's yours, answered Arthur. It's yours, I repeated, handing the drawing to Curtis. The end. So what happened? Curtis, right? You know Curtis, the tough guy, right? Who had the green jacket. He got in a fight with Francisco. But he likes Francisco's drawing. Francisco gives him the drawing. Right? So Francisco gives the drawing to Curtis. And that's how the story ends. Right? As the butterfly left the jar into the world. Okay? So I saw your pens dancing across your notebooks as I was reading. Turn and talk. Share what you wrote down.
I think I have to provide Google actions from
So ask yourself, what details were important? All right, let's quickly share. Okay, there's a lot here, but remember, we're focusing on details, objects, actions, right? Dialogue. So generally, right, give me a thumbs up if you think that this story is the story as a whole, if it's generally positive. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, if you think it's more negative, give me a thumbs down. Okay, so I think we have a few more positives than negatives. So if you think it's positive, in the last part of the story, what are the positive things that we observe? What are the positive sides of the story towards the end? What happens? Kate, you were positive, right? What's something that you would put over here? Okay, so he won the prize, right? He was rewarded for his hard work and efforts and talent with his drawing of the butterfly. What else? What else is a positive thing? Well, didn't you guys feel anything when the butterfly flew away? When the butterfly flew away, I got some taksa, chicken skin, goosebumps. Why did I get those goosebumps? Who is the butterfly? Who's the butterfly? Listen, why? Why did the author choose, Sam, why did the author choose a caterpillar as the class pet and not like a hamster? Why? Wonderful, Kate. Now tell the back of the class, nice and loud. Francisco's the caterpillar. And in the end of the story, he has friends and he turns into the butterfly. Right? That's why I got goosebumps. Because I can see the butterfly like crawling out of the jar and flying away. And then at the bus stop, we see that Francisco, right, he's the author of this book, right? He's the boy in the book. He's also the author. We see the beginnings of some new friendships right at the end of the story. And he gets the award. Right? So he's the butterfly. Okay? So that's why I feel like it's more positive. Okay? Those of you that mentioned the negative things, what were some negative sides you saw at the end? What did you write down there? And I think Sam, Daniel, Eric, you guys had your thumbs down? You have a thumb up? What were some of the negative things at the end? Kurt, well, there, as a reader, I felt anxious when Curtis came back into the picture. I asked you guys, and you said Curtis might rip up that drawing or throw that blue ribbon down into the ground and stomp on it. Throw it in a puddle. Right, I was a little worried at that point. What other negative sides were there at the end? Was there anything? No, I think most of the end is positive. We feel that he's getting more comfortable. Okay? I'd really like to keep reading and see what happens when he goes home and he shows mom and dad his blue ribbon and he talks about how he gave his award-winning drawing to the boy that tried to beat him up and how they're going to be friends. I want to see what happens next. So what we did today, guys, we got to the end of our story, and many of you are getting to the ends of different books. So we went back and we tried to keep track of the positive and negative sides of the story and try to get an overall picture. Just like we did with relationships. We said, is the relationship positive or negative? Okay, so just like we did with relationships, we're going to take a look at the whole book and use what we identify to get a better picture of our character. Okay? Better picture of our character and how they changed, and this will make the big ideas of the story clearer. Alright? So I suggest that today, maybe you and your group, if you're getting towards the end, you make a T-chart in your notebooks. And you try to track the positive and negative pieces of the story. Okay, objects or details or scenes of the story. And ask yourself, is it mostly positive or mostly negative? Okay. So, back to your desks. I look forward to seeing how much you read last night. Does anyone need a new book? No? Kate, I'm going to keep that there, okay?